Go for it.
But no,
I'm just going to pretend like it's not there.
That's exactly what you do.
Okay.
Like don't pay attention to it. You're just kind of here. We're having a conversation, and it's recording, but, you know, I will cut a lot of this stuff out.
Okay.
A lot of the front. But I have a buddy. His name's Xavier Dreiling. He's a really cool guy. I played football with him in college. He now does a Bible rebinding business, and these are beautiful. It's like really impressive, like the kind of leather and quality he uses. But it's funny that when I saw it at first, I was like, I could see Blake doing that in the future.
I looked up, like I was trying to get into it, and I even tore up one of my cheap Bibles, and then I quit midway through the project because it's way harder than it looks.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Like the finishing aspect, you can take like 2 pieces of leather and throw it on a book, but the actually like making it look like like professional is tough.
Was that kind of one of the hobbies you tried to take up, like after ball and everything, or when did that kind of start?
Yeah, it was probably like last year.
Okay.
Because I had a little phase where I was like collecting Bibles.
Yeah.
And because I really like leather, and I even made some leather goods, so it was a natural thing to try.
Yeah.
But it looks terrible.
Nah, it takes practice. Like the only reason I ask is after a lot of people after they get done playing sports, right? And I know you ended a little longer ago, but still, like a lot of people when they get done need a new hobby or
For
like
sure.
6. I call it the athlete midlife crisis because I know myself, my buddy Glenn, who was on episode 2, my buddy Broderick, who was later on, like even Grant Hudgens, and he wasn't, at a super high level competing, but all of us had to go take different hobbies. Like Grant got big into hunting, right? Broderick got into racing. He had a Corvette for a while. Glenn likes to run now, but he also does. He also likes to. What's the word? Whenever you got to redo the cloth and stuff, reupholstery. He likes to reupholstery stuff,
like on furniture.
Yeah, and then I got into woodworking for a little bit, and I took up like. Hope gets mad at me. I took up probably like 7 different hobbies, like archery, hunting, and then, at the same time, woodworking and BS like that.
I'm a little different. I get super into like one thing for about a certain amount of time, whether it's 2 weeks or like a year. And then I, for some reason, wake up, I'm like, this is so boring. I'm not doing it ever again.
That's why you got to have a bunch, man, because then you can kind of rotate between. Like when I get tired of archery, which doesn't happen a lot. By the way, if you pick that up, that'll be your new obsession because, man, it's fun. It's like the fun of shooting, but you get to reuse the ammunition. It's a blast. But when I get bored of that, I'll move or I'll take a little break and go to, like, well, I love weightlifting. That was from college for sure. But like, I'll go to weightlifting or I'll go to woodworking or just random stuff like that. It's nice to be able to alternate. It sounds really dumb, but like you need other outlets for your brain. Otherwise, you just go nuts. Now you have 2 children, 3 on the way, so I don't think you got a lot of time for hobbies right now.
I do. Like, honestly, I kind of view like making money as one of those things.
Yeah.
It's fun to.
It's a responsibility too.
Yeah, when we're both in sales, so it's kind of fun to shoot for goals, and I'm more than willing to sacrifice like certain other things to make it work on that front because it's fun too.
Yeah.
Selfishly, although it is like based off of the need to provide and
it's not a vice of gosh, I just need to make as much money as possible. It's correct me if I'm wrong. I'm trying to provide for my family within the hours of, because I know you're very diligent about spending time with them. I mean, last weekend, whenever we were here watching UFC fights, you were like, hey guys, I may not make it till later because I need to spend time with wife and kids. Like, I know it's important to you. But I get what you're saying. Like, you need to, that's a pretty good thing to be wrapped up in,
Yeah, I think I still have good priorities about it. I mean, my boss is like a workaholic. He's thinking about retiring after this year, and that retiring to him means like working 40 hours a week. So like, I don't want to be like that because I want my kids to know me, throughout their childhood, not just me be around physically. So I'm always home. I always leave the office at 5:00. I don't care, how busy I am. And I don't work Saturdays or Sundays. And I make sure to get in early as possible so I can leave at 5 and not feel guilty about it. But yeah, like selfishly, I want to see how big I can make the paycheck.
Yeah.
But it is based off of, a good foundation of.
Yeah, and you're being diligent with your money as well. Like we've had that conversation. Like you're not, and I'm not going to talk about, what you make or anything like that, but you're fairly diligent when it comes to, not really frivolous spending and putting major priorities first.
Yeah.
Which that makes it like the love of money is the root of all evil, but it's not the love of money. It's the love of working hard to make money and provide for your family, I think, is where you fall in that.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I have a different perspective on what the Bible says about money because, it does say that the love of money is the root of all evil. But, Solomon also said that a just man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. And I think it's if you're doing it ethically and for the right reasons, because there's also the parable that Jesus told about the rich man who was running out of room for all of his grain. He's very rich in terms of like agriculture. And he's like, what am I going to do with all this? I think I'm just going to tear down my storehouses and build bigger ones so I can basically just have more and then spend the rest of my life eating and drinking and being happy with my friends. And I don't remember the exact words. I'm paraphrasing, but it is a parable. Jesus was basically like, this day your life will be taken from you.
Yeah.
And so it's a weird thing, but I do believe that I know that it's a just cause to try to kind of immortalize your finances in a way to where if things in life come at you, you're prepared to not put your family in danger,
It's an extremely important thing. And that's one of the main reasons. And I can talk about this because I think by the time this is published, I'll be, moved on to my next chapter of life. But that's one of the reasons I'm wanting to become a financial advisor. Like I watched my dad, help prioritize people's future and finance and change people's lives, if we're being honest, or the trajectory of them. Could they have gotten there without him? Probably, but it'd have been a lot harder, And Dave Ramsey said something the other day I really liked, which was, it is your responsibility to be a good steward of your money so that you may bless others, right? You can't bless anybody if you're, X amount in debt and you're like panicking at the end of every month or anything like that. Like, how are you supposed to also like be generous and give and bless other people? Like, you can bless other people in other ways, but if your finances aren't right, your mind isn't right, because your time is spent like, okay, you're worrying, you're panicking, and it kind of leads down this road of like opening up the door for not trusting in God and being more concerned, right?
For sure.
It also, speaking of, I think, parables you were talking about, it reminds me of the parable of the talents, because that one I love that one so much. It's Jesus was telling of the master who went away, left his servants 5 talents, 2 talents, and 1 talent, right? Which was the currency, but it's interesting that he also uses the word talent,
right?
Because it's perfect, right? And then he comes back. The first 2 had invested theirs, and there's a double in growth. The last one had buried his and just presented it back to him, and he was kind of cursed. He was like, "Hey, man, like I gave you this to, go and be a good steward of it, and all you did is give me back exactly what I gave you." And so it's kind of like, well, one, being a good steward of whatever you're given, whether that's money, whether that's the ability to work, whether that's a talent for public speaking or for, a heart that wants to go serve, and you don't do anything with it, you're way worse off, and I think it translates to both finance and actual physical talents of, like, I think you have an extreme talent for speaking, even though actually we've talked about that a few times where you've led some studies and some sermons at church. What church do you go to? Remind me.
Temple Baptist.
Yeah. Okay.
In Fireman.
Like, I think you have a great talent for that. I think you have a talent for that and very interesting insight that I hadn't considered before. Whenever you do present some things, but if God put that in your heart and you never did anything with it, by the time we get up to the pearly gates, and He's like, dude, think of all the people you could have impacted, and you just sat there and did nothing, and that's a fear of mine. Like, what do I have? What talents am I working with that I'm not using? Or what callings am I totally ignoring from from that I'm just so busy and caught up in the rest of life that I'm not using.
Yeah.
Sorry, I know that was a lot. I went on a tangent there for a second from money.
Yeah, it's no worries. Yeah, the parable of the talents is interesting. The first time I kind of read it, it was weird to me that he would be punished for playing the safe card,
yeah, right?
Because he didn't lose it.
Mm.
And I mean, I've heard sermons out there. Some pastors will say like, "Well, you at least could have invested it and got interest on it,"
Mm-hmm.
which like that's true. But I mean, still, like if I was the master in that, I don't know if I would necessarily be angry at the guy for giving me my money back.
Yeah.
Because I mean, those guys who doubled it, they could have easily lost it.
Yeah.
So like that was my first perspective on that
Well.
parable. But yeah, like what you were saying, I think it's based off like the idea that you're not supposed to operate in life off fear,
or doing the bare minimum,
right?
Yeah. It'd be like I kind of look at it too as like, hey, I gave you a house, right? Let's say I just gave you a house, or a car, and I'm leaving. Here's a car. I'll probably want it back one day, but like this is yours to use for whatever you want, right? And it just sits there and you never did anything with it. It's like, dude, you could there's so many, so much things you could have done. Like why did you just not take the blessing that was given to you and you just squandered it. You didn't do anything with it. And maybe that's a poor example, but I like something that's been on my heart probably the majority of this year and a little bit of last year was being a good steward of what you've been given by God. Because if He blesses you in one way and you handle it well, usually you're blessed in other ways. So your health, taking the priority of that, which that's something you and I actually talked about whenever we were lifting that one time. I love that you lift with me, by the way.
It's so funny.
It makes me so happy because Justin Henderson and Peltier have both been like, I'm good. I don't really want to do it. And Blake, who is no disrespect to you, but you were the skinniest of all of us, and then are like, yeah, I'll lift with you, Brooks. Yeah, and it makes me so happy.
I want my wife to want me.
You're on your third child. I think you're fine. You're doing good. But no, if I was given good health and all I do is, negative things that's gonna eventually impact my health, and I wasn't a good steward of it. If I'm given money and all I do is spend it on BS, then I wasn't a good steward of it. I was work out what you got. So everything, whatever you have, use it, because eventually you'll lose it. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
But, yeah. So you have an interesting background. You and I have been friends. So really very brief intro. This is when I always do it because it's, I don't know. I should do it closer towards the front, but it flows more naturally this way. So Blake Hathaway, absolute stud of a human being, former baseball player, played at the collegiate level, moved on life. Now he is a loving husband and father and very successful in sales career. And we won't say where he's working, but very, very dear friend of mine. So you and I have known each other since 7th grade.
Yep.
I think it was, through Justin Peltier, who I'm going to have on this too for like a theology chat as well. But I'd love to kind of walk through briefly, if however much you want to share, like your story of how it's changed from when you and I met to how we've got here now. Because it's been, 13 years, 14 years? We've known each other quite a while now.
Very true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember the first day that I met you, Brooks. I was in public school up till 7th grade, And my mom told me we were going to Coram Deo, right? And so I knew Justin Peltier before from baseball. We both played on the Tigers, which was like a select travel ball team. We weren't very good, but it was a good team in the sense that we stuck together. Like the whole team stuck together for a majority of our youth careers, and so all the families kind of knew each other, and we had traveled around we had tournaments in Omaha, Nebraska, and Cooperstown, Round Rock, just fun stuff like that. And so we came pretty close to the Peltiers, and then heard I was transferring to Peltier's school, and so we were invited to your house, I guess, for like I don't know what you guys were doing, but there's a bunch of guys from Coram Deo over there. Yeah. And I remember you greeted me at the door, and I thought you were weird.
Yeah, well,
because you and your family were so welcoming. I'd never experienced that before, and it's not that I was like a dark child, but you guys were. I was like, man, I've never met someone so like hospitable, I guess.
Thanks, man.
Like overly hospitable. Well, it was not a bad thing, but it really impacted me. I remember that day. And yeah, since then, I mean, 7th grade through 12th grade, or I guess you transferred, but we still stayed.
We're still friends. You were one of my only friends that like actually remained a friend when I left. Everybody else kind of took it personally, which was weird. But
yeah, I mean, it's a small community, so you kind of get outcasted if you want to leave or whatever. But
right, it's funny. The guest I had before Hendo last week, his name's Broderick Watson, and he loved the guy, and he was episode 3, I think. And eventually I'm going to hopefully be to the point where I can't remember the episodes everybody was on, but he had a similar story because we met in college on my official visit, and he was like, I did not like Brooks when I first met him. Like, it feels like everybody's having the same thing. And I'm like, damn, all right, fine.
Yeah, you're definitely, you got an interesting personality.
I'm like a tumor, man. I grow right on you,
No, yeah, it's definitely, I mean, it's refreshing though, because I'm not the most like outgoing, bubbly guy, but it doesn't mean that I don't want like connection. So it sometimes takes a guy like you to break the bubble.
I appreciate it, man. I like to collect people. So my mom is what's known as a people collector by my dad and I, and she'll have friend groups that are all friends because they know her, and get to meet each other. And I didn't mean to adopt that, but that's just kind of how it happened. And so now, like, I'm pumped for next week, the bachelor party, because it's you, both Justins, and then it's Grant Hudgens. It's my buddy Grant Stevens I played football with, Broderick Watson I played football with, Glenn Bernard I played football with, and then Alex Zalett, Jacob Seeley, who is a collegiate wrestler. Like, it's a really fun group of guys that are all getting together, and I'm so excited about that.
I'll probably be the smallest guy there, but if you get enough beers in me, I'll try to
wrestle Jacob.
Yeah, I'll try to fight him.
Wrestle Jacob, that'll be so good. There's
something about alcohol and me. I like to just get,
Oh yeah, it's great.
I want to start throwing.
100%.
I try to find the biggest guy, and I'm like, let's go.
Well, don't do the biggest guy. The biggest guy is going to be Grant, and Grant is giant. Actually,
Grant Hudgens?
No. Grant Stevens.
Oh.
Grant Stevens is our left tackle in college.
Right. He'll be my target.
Okay. You heard it, Grant. If you hear it, you're going down. No, he's awesome. Like
5'11", 150 coming right at you.
Yeah, just of twisted steel and sex appeal. But no, the cool thing about it, and honestly, people like you that have been in my life are the reason I wanted to do this whole thing, this podcast thing, right? It's a project that I've wanted to do for a while, and the reasoning behind it was I've been blessed with so many awesome people with cool insights that have poured into me and taught me a lot of stuff. Like, whether you know it or not, I've learned a lot from you, which I think is awesome. Like, it's a blessing. But I would love to provide the platform for other people to get to know you a little better and get to hear what you have to say a little better. Now, you're one of the early people on this thing, so I mean, maybe 5 people will listen to this if we're being totally honest. But of those 5 people, like, hey, maybe somebody will at the end of it just be like, man, he said something that really resonated with me. And ultimately, you'll hopefully get to change somebody. So anyway, we were friends middle school through high school. We get done with college, or we get done with high school. I left from Liberty, went to UNC. Hendo was at Texas Tech. Justin went to A&M. You took a different route. You really picked up on sport. Like you were an athlete your whole career, middle school, high school career, and then you decided you wanted to take it a step further. Went to college to play ball. So tell me a little bit about it. I know it's an intense environment.
No, yeah, it was really fun. But looking back, I think I would have done it differently because I when you grow up playing sports, the whole goal is to get someone to pay for your college to do it. And I really wasn't that good growing up. I mean, I was always really undersized, but I always had a great arm in the outfield.
Fast. You were really fast.
I was fast, but I wasn't like elite fast.
Fair enough.
So like if you put me up against other, like on my college team, even though I was a pitcher, I was kind of up there with the other outfielders in terms of like sprint, but I wasn't like steal a base easily kind of speed. But I would say I would probably be like an above average runner.
That's fair.
But I always like what I really had was an arm, and then I was always very undersized. I think when I was 16 on my first license, I was 5'3", and I bet I was about 100. And
can confirm. No disrespect, but
I was a really late bloomer.
Yeah.
But in between my sophomore and junior year, I sprouted up. I'm still not a big guy, but I at least became like.
You're tall. Like, you got a lot taller.
I was like, I'm 5'11" now, so I probably shot up to like 5'10", which is like, above average, but I was still very skinny. But my arm got like really strong. I was throwing harder than a lot of other people, and I'm left-handed as well. So I started getting interest to pitch in college, and then I really wasn't a pitcher. I didn't really know how to pitch. I hadn't really pitched. I was more of an outfielder. But my dad played college ball at Dallas Baptist, which is a great program. So he was kind of guiding me through, and I was getting some interest from a couple small 4 years like Texas Wesleyan.
Yeah. Off topic, by the way, to interject, having that, because we're in the same boat when it came to our college careers, like having a dad who was in that boat before, huge blessing, because you're not just over there figuring out, wandering blindly in the dark. You actually have somebody who's like, hey, this is probably what's going to happen. Like my dad became my consultant when it came to like life and stuff. But go ahead. Anyway.
Yeah, my dad was like sending emails for me to coaches.
Yeah.
My dad actually had a hilarious college career. I'll say it real briefly.
Go ahead.
He grew up in Indiana, I think. It's kind of hard for me. It's still blurry because he moved around a lot. But I think he went to high school in Indiana, came down to Dallas to play at Dallas Baptist. And as a freshman, he got kicked off the team because he got in a fight with the coach's son, who's actually, they're friends now. But
there you go.
Yeah, they got in a fight. So next day after the fight, coach pulled him in the office and said, "You're off the team." So then he goes to Northlake Junior College, which is another school in here in Dallas. Had a terrible BP session, batting practice session, and ended up throwing his bat into right field. He said he was such a hothead, and then the exact same thing. Yeah. Coach pulls him in the office. You're off the team. Yeah. But anyway, so I think he only played his freshman and sophomore years, but he was anyway.
Yeah.
But so I was getting some small 4-year offers, and I think another one was Idaho State. I was getting like these random schools.
Bro, if you had gone there, we would have played you.
Really?
I'm not. Yeah, they were in our conference, Big Sky.
That would have been cool.
Bro, that would have been awesome. We played Idaho State all the time. I hated them.
Really?
Oh my gosh, bunch of punks. But yeah, that would have been awesome. I didn't know that. You should have gone there.
Yeah, I could have. That was pretty much the only 2 schools, but I ended up going to Northlake Junior College because my dad was like kind of in my ear saying that, if you go to these 4 years, you're going to basically redshirt for your first 2 years. And it's like, I would probably recommend you go somewhere a little smaller, get some innings, make sure you play. And that's what happened. But I was able to I think I was nationally ranked in innings pitched and a couple other things. I didn't have a great year. I looked at my stats online a couple weeks ago, and I was like, oh man, I really wasn't that.
Dude, that stats bar is tough. Like I had to look at it too the other day, or not the other day, but probably about a year ago. Like I was a good player. I'll say this, right? Because I was a captain on my team. I was a 4-year starter. But statistically speaking, if you look at, because I switched around positions so much, my sacks column, abysmal.
Yeah, right.
It was abysmal. But like if you looked at like film and like tackles. I had a pick six. I had a bunch of cool stuff during college, but like that sacks column.
Yeah.
When I was playing outside linebacker, D line, which is kind of, you look at it and you're like, well, you should have more. And I'm like, well, I was playing 4-eye and I was a dropping backer sometimes. It's not a forgiving place. I'll be honest. That stats column.
Yeah. I think I had a 4.5 ERA, which is like, in the league I was playing in, it's not bad, but it's not like elite.
Yeah.
But I was proud of myself because I remember the first day of fall practice, because baseball is a spring sport.
Yeah.
There was like 20-something guys on the pitching staff, and they were all huge, like big guys.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I don't think I don't have what it takes. But I remember in spring ball, I worked my way up to the point where on our first game of playoffs, I was the starter. So I became the first starter, like the ace of the team, which I was proud of that. And like I said, I would have good games where we would play like out of conference teams that were real solid, and I would pitch well against them.
Yeah.
But
you also started pitching pretty late.
Yeah, I did.
And that to me, and correct me, because I'm not a big baseball guy when it comes to like knowledge, but like that is a disadvantage to start late, correct?
I don't know. I mean, I was more of a thrower, but I was such a baseball guy growing up, like playing wiffle ball. I was obsessed. I still am obsessed with baseball.
Yeah.
I was my childhood was playing travel ball spring and fall seasons. When I wasn't playing baseball on the field, I was out in the front yard playing wiffle ball with all my neighbors.
Yeah.
When I wasn't doing that, I was playing MLB The Show on my PlayStation, and literally when I wasn't doing that, I was watching the Rangers play.
You just lived and breathed it.
Yeah, and so I always had I think one of my best qualities about me as a baseball player was that I had a really tremendous understanding of the game and like the IQ side of it. So I knew how to mess with hitters, and because like all the wiffle ball experience, I actually had good like pitches.
Yeah.
My best pitch was a slider. I really understood how to spin the ball. But I would say where it did disadvantage me was control. Yeah. Because I didn't really have all like the fundamentals of pitching. I was more of just a hard thrower. But even as like in college, I really wasn't even that hard of a thrower. I topped to 86. So that's pretty average. Yeah. But for my size, it was pretty big. Yeah. But looking back, I kind of regret it. Because I didn't really focus on school. I think I had a 1.9 GPA my freshman year.
Tough one, man. I ain't gonna lie to you. That's a rough.
Well, I wasn't going to class.
Yeah, I mean that's fair.
And I wish someone would have told me, like, dude, even if you had the best stats on earth on the field, you couldn't even transfer to a 4-year because of your grades.
Yeah, we had a lot of guys who got recruited, took a similar approach of, hey, I'm not gonna go to class. I'm just gonna go to play ball or whatever, and then they can't play. You end up to where you're ineligible, and they're like, well, I'm a transfer. It's like, how are you gonna do that? How are you gonna do that with the grades you got? And that's something that we didn't have a coach. My first go around, right, when it came to that coaching staff, my first coaching staff when I got there, really prioritized grades. We had a 3.1 average.
That's a good coach, yeah.
Yeah, it was great for that, but like love him to death. I'd love to get him on this one day, but like we can call a spade. He maybe wasn't the best head coach when it came to winning games, right?
Yeah.
We can call a spade here. Like I think that there were a lot of things he probably could have done better. Obviously everybody can do something better, but one thing I will give him his flowers on every day of the week is as a man and as prioritizing the athletes as a person more than an athlete, he did a good job. Now, sometimes he gave too many people chances, right? Like sometimes it was like, hey, man, this is his sixth chance. He need to go. You got to cut a man loose. But, no, I get you. Like, there needs to be more there's a lot less mentorship in college.
Oh, yeah, there's pretty much none.
Yeah. Like, most of my mentorship, because I had 13 different position coaches in college. 13. Like, that is like 3 per year if you're only going for 4 years, right? I ended up there for 6, so it's 2. But my main mentors came in the shape of older players. Like mine were, if I were to name them, be Luke Nelson. He was a linebacker that was a couple years ahead of me. Great guy. You'll meet him at the wedding. Eddie Gonzalez, similar guy. You'll meet at the wedding. And he actually ended up being when I was on D-line, he was my guy, and then he ended up being my coach my whole last year. They brought him in as a D-line coach, which was awesome because it's like, hey, I'm finally getting to work with a guy who's known me for the 5 years before this, knows how I respond, knows what gets really under my skin, and that was the most fun I had ever had, you know. But aside from that, like, I think of coaches that were really mentors to me in college, and not a ton come to mind.
Yeah.
It's sad because it's like, this is where, you know, you're most, you know, being shaped into who you are in college. Like, at least, you know, in high school, yeah, but like college is now, this is totally different, and you got to do the next level of growing. And they essentially treat you like a commodity of like, well, are you producing? No or yes. And even if you're producing, they're not even super tight with you. You got, you know, they're in office 70, 80 hours a week, and most of the time is watching film, you know? And so
I actually kind of liked that aspect about college because high school was like, it felt like more like the next step of the sports, because I know like there was no politics. It was the best
in college.
Yeah, to me it was the
That's
best.
fair.
The best 9. There's 9 people on the field. The best 9 are on the field, and so I knew that if I just was the best, I could get it.
And that makes sense for baseball because baseball is a lot harder. It is so statistics oriented,
Right.
that it's a lot harder to politic.
Yeah, okay.
Football is a little more ambiguous, especially like when it comes to, because it's 11 guys who all have to work together cohesively for it to work out. Because I experienced a lot of politics. I had a coach who didn't like me because I was white. Like, actually had 2 coaches who said that. They both point blank said to me, I would like you better if you weren't white. And I was like, well, sorry to disappoint. You know, like, I don't know what you want me to do there. But yeah, I experienced a lot more politics, maybe not directly because I was always a company guy, you know, like, I'll do what's best for the team. I'll go to bat, fall on the sword. That was kind of my role in a lot of ways. Like, I was on the radio show those last 2 years, and I was constantly talking about, hey, like, we're going to be good. Like, I'm going to bat for these coaches and all this stuff. So, but I saw a lot of people who did not find that favor in the politicking, you know, and it was unjust. And then I saw a lot of people who got way too many chances for who they were. You know,
Yeah.
We had a guy, I won't name names because, like, I still love the guy, but we had a guy who was undersized, you know, not strong enough, not fast enough. Did make plays, especially on like special teams and stuff, but like and he probably worked hard. He worked hard when he was supposed to, right? But sometimes he just showed up and he caused more trouble than he was worth. I always like referred to a grid, you know, of like there's a slant, you know, like there's this grid and you got this line, and I call it the asshole to productivity chart. So if you're producing more than you're being a, you know, jerk, I'll say that, then I'm fine with you, right? It's like I can handle that much of you being, you know, you acting out of pocket because you're also making 12 tackles a game due for a turnover or you know, catching 2 touchdowns or whatever. I can deal with you being late. I can deal with you smarting off to the coach. I can deal with that. But if you're not doing anything to start and you're also trying to take part in that, well, I showed up late and I'm lazy and this and that, we got a problem, you know? And that's where the mentorship comes in, right? Because you take these guys who are immature. A lot of them come from different backgrounds. You know, you don't know. We were blessed. We had fathers in the house, but a lot of people don't. Like, a lot of people don't have both parents in the house, right? And you would think that college makes more of an effort to put mentors in front of people, and they don't. It's unfortunate, you know?
Yeah, but being a mentor and a teacher is really hard.
Oh, heck yeah.
And so, like,
and not everybody who coaches should be a coach either, you know?
Right.
Let me say that as well.
And that's in business too. A lot of times in business, they'll take the person who's the best at
Yeah.
doing the job and make them a manager.
Yeah.
But I think that's something that's a misconception, which is you take the best sales guy on the team, you make him the sales manager. Mm-hmm. That's not a lot of, most of the time it doesn't equal them being a good manager because it's very difficult to mentor, to teach. Mm-hmm. And you know, I tried coaching for a little bit.
I was wondering.
Yeah. And I realized, like, after literally 1 or 2 seasons that I was not meant to do it because because you have all these great ideas, but it doesn't mean they'll listen to you.
True.
And it gets very tiring, and you got to really love the kids. And I feel like I just didn't.
Yeah.
Like I'm just me.
When was that time period, by the way?
It's probably a couple years after I left playing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Was Jace in the picture yet?
Yeah.
Okay, because I was wondering how, like, and that's actually one of my next questions, and once we get to that point, but, like, I was wondering how, you know, potentially being a father might alter that, because I don't know. I don't know if it, like, changes how you feel about it. I look at young men, and this is me personally, I think coaching would be awesome. I don't know that I want to do it full time, because the unfortunate part about it is, especially, like, to be able to provide financially as a coach, you got to be at the top level, and you're still not making time for your own kids, and it's difficult. Like, my favorite coaches I ever had in college, and I, by the way, let me backtrack, because I did have a mentor in college, but it wasn't on the coaching staff as a football player or a football coach. His name was Jeff Butler. He actually just texted me, like, he's going to be at my wedding too, and he was my strength coach, and the guy's the man. Like, I could talk to him. He helped me develop both physically and personally, and I don't want to go through this if he ever does listen without giving him his flowers. But, like, it's interesting you say that coaching wasn't really for you, because to me, I feel like you're really apt to help people develop. Like, how old was the age group in which you were kind of helping coach?
It was varsity baseball.
Okay.
But I still found like they're still kids.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
And
I figured that would be the age that you excelled at, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, well, I think I was coachable. Like when a coach would speak to me, I would always look them in the eye. And
in their authority.
In their authority, even if what they were saying to me was BS, because there are stupid coaches out there.
Too many. Too many.
My pitching coach in college was a moron in terms of like baseball knowledge. I knew more than him. I knew the game more than him, and I knew how to pitch. I knew the idea of pitching. I knew anyway, that's a whole different.
Yeah, you're good.
But yeah, I mean, I'd be talking to a kid who sucked.
Yeah.
And I'm telling him what he needs to do, like how to fix a mistake he just clearly made.
Yeah.
And he's looking off in the distance, and I'm literally like, I found myself taking the mental approach like, dude, if you're not going to listen to me, then I'm not going to help you. Yeah. And I feel like that's not a good coach. A coach needs to be persistent.
I don't know. I feel like yes and no. So let me give you this, because my dad is my closest friend probably, right? Like, you know, I've got a lot of really tight people in my life, but my dad is my closest friend. But you remember, you were there, like, probably when he was a coach, you know, when he helped coach middle school and all that, like, and even on up until probably like after sophomore year, me and him were not close. You know, we butted heads because he had this idea of how it should be, right? And taking this direct approach of like, if you want to be good, do this. And if you don't want to be good, don't do it, because you're not doing it right now, and all this crap, right? Like he was always the guy who's telling me what I should be doing, you know, and it never felt like it was good enough what I was doing, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of truth to that, but the other truth I have to look in the face was I didn't want it the same way he wanted it for me. When he took his foot off the gas and left it to me to be responsible for my own development and take accountability, which was right around the time I found the weight room, right around the time that, you know, I actually had ambition to be good, our relationship changed, like, extremely. Now he is my closest friend. Now he is somebody I can confide in, because I knew he knew what he was talking about, but at the same time, I was like, you know, dude, you can't even praise me when I do something right. Why on earth would I listen to you? You know, because all I hear about is what I do wrong. You know, there was one game I played in high school at Corumdale's my sophomore year. I had a 70-yard fumble recovery return. I got pulled down at the 2, which was the only touchdown we scored that entire night because I put us on the 2-yard line. I had that. I had a sack and 2 TFLs and probably like a handful of tackles. He graded it. -8 was my score.
Yeah, your dad was a tough coach.
He was harsh, man, and he was also somebody who operated a lot out of stress during that time, because financially he's putting 2 kids through, you know, private school, 1 kid through college. Like, it's difficult, you know. And funny enough, like he has a cool story, and if he ever gets on this, I'll let him share it. But like once he took that foot off the gas, like, and stopped being so controlling of his life and everybody else around him, he was blessed immeasurably, right? He and I's relationship just bloomed. Him and my mom they're on fire, right? Same with my siblings, and then his career as a financial advisor just skyrocketed, right? And just did so much better. And I do this in these podcasts, by the way. I kind of let it go to this, I kind of take it off on a tangent, so I apologize. But where I was trying to go with that is, as a coach, you cannot want it more for the kid than they do. And so I think the approach a lot of coaches should take, and this is obviously in theory, not in practice, isn't as much, hey, I want it for you, so this is what you need to do. It should be a lot more of like, hey, I'm just going to poke you, and I'm going to poke and prod just a little bit to get you to ask you the questions to get you to start wanting it more, right? And just show you what you're capable of, rather than, because if I don't feel like I can do it, I'm not going to try that hard. Like yesterday, I haven't touched that weight in forever, but I haven't felt like I can do it. But once I felt like I could do it, and got that comfort and was put in that, difficult position, all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, imagine how far I can take this. And then that's when you get the buy-in. And then you just have to keep, because that doesn't last forever. So you just got to keep finding ways to put athletes in that position.
Yeah.
That's just my thought. And that's why I'm like, I feel like you'd be a really good coach, man. I don't know what it is, but like.
I like to teach. I really do.
That's
I like
what
to teach.
I'm saying. Like you have a teacher's heart, man.
I think so. But I think when it came specifically to baseball, I was more of a player.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think I didn't give myself enough credit for some of the stuff that I had that was just innate. Mm. And when I realized like how to teach it, I didn't really know how to do it.
Yeah.
I don't know how to teach it, but I just did it.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know. And I just didn't have the love for the kids, like these random kids that I couldn't give a crap about.
Yeah. And respect has gone out the door especially with kids that are, like high school, middle school, high school. Now there's no more yes sir, yes ma'am, anything like that. It's not looking at anybody older as an authority. It's so much more like, and I think it's directly correlated with social media, of just putting everybody on the same level. But used to, when somebody was 25, like my age, walked in and, we had volunteers from college programs and stuff that had gone to Liberty that would come in and help out. They came in, I'd say, yes, sir. And they'd be like, dude, I'm like 5 years older than you. You don't have to say yes, sir. And I was like, dude, you're not getting rid of that. I'm sorry, I can't help you. That's just how I was raised.
My first college visit I had, and I joined a practice with their team and threw a bullpen and stuff.
Yeah.
And, I'm just like this little high schooler. I kept calling the kids sir.
Mm-hmm. Dude.
And, looking back, I'm like, what the heck, dude? What? Well, I was like calling these 20-year-olds sir. I was 18, but they were so much.
That happens to me to this day in the gym. Like you went with me the other day. You met Mitch at the gym. There's a bunch of kids, too, now that I see people at the gym and I want to make friends, and I'll see people doing something that's like, that could hurt you. Can I help? Like, can I help you on this form? And there's a young kid named Grant who's about to go play lacrosse somewhere. I can't remember where. And he and I lifted together once. And but yeah, he calls me sir, and I'm like, dude, you're 18. I'm 25. Like, that's not a huge difference. Please quit calling me sir. You gotta stop that. It's weird, dude.
Definitely is weird.
Yeah. Of course, I look 35, so it's more reasonable. I do not look my age at all. So coaching, not for you. Not really.
No.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. I still have that. I still feel like I could play.
Yeah.
I wish that, I don't wish things were different, but I only got to play that freshman year and I made a huge jump forward. Mm-hmm. Do you ever think, do you wonder if you could have?
If I had transferred, or if I had been able to, my question I always ask myself is, what would have happened if I stayed in one position all 5 years of college, But I started one game at every position in the front seven, which is cool and it's fun to say, right? But that whole last year I played nose guard because of injuries. I'm not a nose guard,
right?
Do I ask that? Yeah, but then I wonder how that would impact where I'm at now, which is, I went to UNC. I was a 4-year starter, finished out as a captain, met my fiance, got 2 degrees, spoke at my commencement. Like, if I'd gone somewhere else, maybe that wouldn't have been the opportunity. And ultimately what we have to look at too, and I know you know this, I'm just saying it for, the third party here, is when you look at what could have been, you forego what you have now. And I think if you genuinely look at it, a lot of people wouldn't trade where they're at now for, what could have been,
Yeah.
Like if you had gone somewhere else, right? If you had gone to Idaho State, you probably wouldn't have met Bella, and you probably wouldn't have your 2 beautiful boys with one on the way,
That's very true.
Like that's a big thing, But I get what you're saying. The what ifs will always kill you,
Yeah. Well, because I think even right now, I feel like with myself physically, I just wonder, because I'm still I'm the biggest I've ever been.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, I wonder, because I walked into my freshman year, I was real small still.
Mm-hmm.
And then I put on like 15 pounds, but I was still only at 150 pounds.
Yeah.
And I was throwing 85. And the way that I was as a pitcher, if I could have thrown 90, there's not a doubt in my mind somebody would have paid me to do it professionally.
Sure.
So I was like, I wonder, have you ever watched that movie, The Rookie?
Yeah.
With Dennis Quaid, is it?
It's Dennis Quaid, yeah. He's like 40.
Yeah, that's a true story, too.
I know it is. Like, hey, man, like, there's no saying. I was laughing. I'm not telling you can't do it.
I'm not going to pursue that, but there is that little wonder, because I only got the freshman year, and I jumped from 80 miles an hour that fall season to 85 at the end of the season.
Yeah.
And it's like, if I could have got to like 175, which isn't even a heavy weight.
Yeah.
I think I could have maybe done it, but.
Well, here's what I'll say, and this is the last thing I'll say before we start diving into other topics, because I love sports. I do. I know you love sports. Like, just because now you don't have something to strive for in baseball doesn't mean you don't have something to strive for in general, right? I'm done with football. My time has passed, right? I finished the year. I had a horrible, horrible high ankle sprain that tore ligaments in my ankle. Like, I was done. The love for it was done. We went 2-10 or 3-9, whatever it was. But no, it's all good. But the thing is, now that you're done with sports at a competitive level, that doesn't mean you have to be done. Like, that doesn't mean now it's like, all right, I'm just going to work and I'll work out occasionally and do whatever. Now you just need to set a new goal for what you want to do physically, right? Where you want to push yourself to. Right now, mine is I want to clean 400 pounds because I'm 25. Like you're done, but at the same time, we're still in the prime of our youth, and like I've got 5 more years before it starts to decline, if that. Like it might be later, it might be sooner. So you just got to pick a new goal of like, look, is baseball in the cards for me that I'm going to pursue? Probably not. If you want to, I'll support you. I love you, and I'll support you. But if it's not, go find something else to do. Like I want to do kickboxing and jiu-jitsu. I want to get big into elk hunting and go backpack and take one with a bow. Like you still have so much that you're capable of. The time that you'll really experience that regret is when you're, let's say you don't do a whole lot. Like, you don't push yourself up until you're 60, 70, and you're like, well, now that's off the table entirely. And now I'll really regret it, right? Go find something fun. Like, go find something that you have interest in and are able to push yourself to be better. Because I think one of the major problems in our society is comfort, being comfortable. Whereas, like, and you notice this when we got up at 5 a.m. to go do a horrible leg workout, a terrible leg workout, and then row 2,000 meters after that, right? Like, it's not fun, but when you do that, it's like what James says, right? Count it all joy, my brothers, when you face trials of various kinds, for trials build steadfastness, right? It's a similar thing of, if I voluntarily subject myself to difficult things, not only am I going to grow, but I'm going to be prepared when the difficult things in life just pop up randomly, That's just my 2 cents, and we can get on to another subject besides baseball, but like, Don't let being done with sports as American society would deem it be the reason you stop trying to pursue stuff physically, athletically, whatever it is. Because you're still an athlete. Like, look, you're in the prime of your life right now. You're definitely stronger, bigger, faster than you were whenever you were in high school and college. So what are you going to do with it? While we're getting emails.
Yeah, no, I think too, like, even though baseball's done, I'm still like highly fulfilled. And I use a lot of that mental, I guess, adversity that came along with it in my business, because there's a lot of different mental aspects which was really interesting to me as a player, that translate into to sports or to business as well. Like,
oh my gosh, yeah.
I know, like, I remember I was in high school and I was just kind of beginning to throw or pitch, and I was dealing with some personal things. I remember it was like an old girlfriend. And
I've been there, buddy. Don't worry.
I saw her in the stands. It was like senior night or something, and she was with some other guy, and it kind of lit a fire under me.
Oh yeah.
I was real angry on the mound.
Yeah.
And I threw a perfect game.
Yeah. Hell yeah, you did.
So like in college, like I kind of had its persona of like a psycho. I tried to mimic that a lot, and a lot of times the first pitch of the game, I would throw it right at the pitcher, at the hitter's head.
Yep.
I would just throw it at their head, and I was just really mad. And even to my own teammates, I would sit at the edge of the dugout, and they knew not to talk to me, and I would be a douche to them if they did, or if they even asked me a question, I wouldn't answer them.
Yeah.
But I mean, I was always a nice guy, but not when I was pitching. But in business, it's kind of like that too. You know, it's necessary to take that kind of like, I'm going to kill you approach.
Yeah.
Not necessarily to anybody, pointed at anybody, but it just at whatever
I'm
the
going
goal.
to take this intense aggression I have, and I'm going to push it towards what I need to accomplish.
Right. It's like a psychotic.
Yep.
I don't care if it's good or bad. I have the same pursuit, even if I just sold X amount of whatever. It doesn't change the fact that I'm, like trying to, and that's fun to me. I like to get in that zone.
Dude, my greatest PRs in the weight room have only ever come from heartbreak. Actually, that's a lie. My best one I ever had, was like clean wise, was just because I was happy to do it. But like, it all started because I was heartbroken, man. Like, the heart is a very strong thing, man. And when it gets broken, you turn into a different person. It's 100%, weird, and it shapes you in different ways, which is cool. And at the same time, it can make you go make some really bad choices.
Very true.
Yeah.
I have one story about
Hit me, dude.
Being a psycho.
I love stories. Like, that's what this is made for, bro. This old sugar pine table was made for stories. Hit me.
So I was, it's another baseball story, but I was on the mound being a psycho, and we were playing a team in our conference who was just known to be chirpy, and they just always talked, and they were just real scrappy and kind of bush league. Like, they were always...
Yeah, we had a few of those.
Yeah. Anyway, we hated them. And I'm on the mound. They're just talking smack the entire time, which was just kind of feeding me. And I got through the 7th inning with 0 runs on the board, so I was really kind of cruising. And they were just still talking smack. I remember it was because the umpire gave me this ball that I didn't like, so I threw it back. And that's pretty typical for a pitcher.
But they're calling you like what, prima donna or something?
Well, yeah, I get another ball. I didn't like it either. I threw it back. And they started just talking smack, and I started throwing balls back to their dugout. Yeah. And then after I got through that inning, they were just, I don't even remember what they were saying, but I ended up walking, instead of to my dugout, I walked up to their dugout. And I just silently pointed at the scoreboard, because we were winning like 7-0 or something like that. And I was just standing there for like 5 seconds, just silent.
Just being annoying,
And it started like this whole thing, and the benches cleared, and my coach was so pissed at me. Like, Blake, get back here.
Dude, baseball fights crack me up, because it's like, in football, like, you'll get blindsided, and they'll just talk smack on your mom, and they'll look up your social media, like have your girlfriend's name and all this stuff, and that won't start a fight. But like, you take a cheap shot on a teammate, and that's when you're like, all right, cool. That's when the bench is clear, right? But that cracks, like, baseball fights, there's a lot of unspoken rules in baseball that make me laugh really hard.
Yeah,
like,
there's some goofy ones.
It's just different. I had a moment in college. We were playing Eastern Washington. It's my least favorite team we ever play, ever. I hate them. And they have this red field that's in Washington that's never been never been replaced. It's like 30 years old, never been refurbished. And you play them in like November, freezing cold. You're on the top East Coast, like it's awful, or not coast, like you're in the top Northeast or Northwest, sorry. And those refs, like they're so good. When a team is so good that they never get penalty, it's like the Chiefs, right? Because they won the conference title the last couple of years. The Chiefs never get flags called on them because you're like, oh, they're so good, they're just doing it all legally, right? So like, and this team's so bad that, you know, they're probably needing to, like, there's a stigma going into the game that the refs have in their head of like, you know, if a team's bad, they're probably going to be more penalized, right? And if a team's good, they're probably doing it within the rules. That's nonsense. Everybody does the exact same crap. It's just refs decide who they're going to call it on. So our Coach Collins, got thrown out of the game because he was so pissed at this pass interference that led to us not getting a touchdown and then, you know, kind of coming back in the game. And we're still down. And they threw him out because he was just cussing out the refs and all this stuff. And I'm playing, we're about to punt, and I'm one of the punt shield. And the refs, I don't talk a lot of smack during the games. I will, like the other team, like funny stuff. Like I'll just be over here like, hey man, what conditioner you use on that hair? That's some grade A, you know, whatever nonsense. Like, is that Head and Shoulders? You know, it's stupid. But that ref came up to me, and I'll omit the words I actually said, you know. But I just said, hey man, like, tell me, how do you sleep at night, actually? And he wanted to be like, he's like that 40-year-old guy who's like, oh, I got one for him. He said, I sleep pretty good in that sleep number bed, you know, whatever. I was like, is that the same one that you share with the Eastern Washington coach over there? He said, hey, 48, you got one more of those before I throw you out. And I was like, all right, man, I just want to see where the line was. but like crap like that, man, like that stuff. I love talking to the refs way more than I love talking to the other team. Like, that was the stuff to me that made me laugh way harder because everybody hates the ref.
Right.
Every ref is the worst. Even the best ref is terrible. And they used to call us for everything. Like, there was one time a ref, I was lined up to block a field goal, and the ref was manually moving me over because I was too close to the center. And I, like, slapped his hand off me. I said, don't you ever touch me again. And he was like, hey, I'll throw you out of here. I was like, do not touch me again. You throw me out of here, I promise you it's going to be worse for you than it is for me. Do not touch me again. I hated refs. Anyway, all right, moving on from sports. We'll probably touch back on one other thing because I do want to ask, like, the hardest part about, like, giving it up and how it shaped you. But you get done with baseball, meet Bella. You do become a father. And you know, now you've got two boys. One's on the way. Congratulations again, by the way.
Thank you.
That's fantastic. You're a great dad, and it's been cool to watch you develop as a father. But what I was going to ask was, how has that shaped you and changed you into who you are now?
Yeah, I mean, you'll find out having kids changes your life completely. Mm-hmm. It's not a cliche to say that.
No, yeah.
It really exposes how selfish you are. Yeah. And it was kind of more intense for me because I was 20 years old when I found out that we were expecting the first, and we weren't married at the time.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, I can go into the whole story, but it's pretty long. But I hardly kind of knew Bella. I mean, we were friends, but we weren't dating. And
by the way, I just want you to know, like, I didn't want you to feel like you had to share this story if you didn't want to, but I'm glad you are. Keep going. Yeah.
But anyway, when the kid comes out, it exposes how selfish you are because it's pretty much the mantra of it is denying yourself for the sake of someone else constantly. Yeah. And you mix that with the fact that you quit baseball, even though looking back, I had a 1.9 GPA, probably wasn't even going to be eligible. Yeah. I don't exactly know how that would have gone, but sure. But yeah, there was that, and you know, I kind of took the approach of, you know, like, I made this decision, so I have to deal with the consequences, and there's no way I'm going to let the child suffer for my selfishness. And so I was like, I will shut my whole life down. I will live a life of misery to basically raise him up. And that was not a necessarily healthy approach. I kind of carried a lot of self-pity, and it was pretty weak. But, I mean, I was still getting to the right solution.
Yeah,
I was
just
there.
The process behind it wasn't the right way.
And I was still there, and intentional. But the Lord kind of worked through me to get over that immaturity and find joy in it. And I did. I always liked it. It was always fun, but it definitely changes you. It forces you to grow up, really. And again, that sounds really, really cliche.
But it's so true.
Yeah.
You do about 10 years of growth in the span of a couple months.
Yeah.
You know?
And I see some of these 40-year-olds now, or like really old people that don't have children. Yeah. And there's just something that I see in them. Like, they don't really have that maturity. Like, I feel like it's pretty hard to mature fully if you don't have kids, because it seriously like taught me everything about how to be a man in general, like how to wake up at 5:30 when you don't want to, how to go to work when you don't want to. It's 2:00 and you're tired, work anyway. Yeah. And
get home, don't just go, grab a beer from the fridge and relax, go play ball with your boys.
I do go grab a beer when I get home.
That's fair, but like, no, but you know what I mean though. Like, not, like, it doesn't stop. Your work day doesn't stop when you get home.
Yeah. In fact, I joke all the time that it's second shift.
Yeah.
So it's like, I get home from work, my commute's an hour home, and I literally change and I'm in second shift immediately. Again, I'll crack open a beer first. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, the kids, all they want to do, all they're asking their mom all day is like, when's dad going to get home? Because they just, like, some of the happiest I ever see them is when I play with them. So they, it's, a lot of times I don't want to do that. Yeah. But it's worth it.
Absolutely. And I think it reminds me a lot of God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called, right? So I think that's the same for fatherhood too, right? There are a lot of people who probably don't feel like they're qualified to be a father, but when they become a father, God qualifies them, right?
Yeah.
And I think that you probably fall into that, because whenever we first met and up until, like, no disrespect here whatsoever, but whenever you told me that Bella was pregnant, I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, it was a heartbreaking.
Like, I was thing. Like, in my head, I'm like, first of all, I had so much respect for you. I'm gonna share this, and if you're like, hey, let's cut it out afterward, no problem. But you were like, dude, we're not getting an abortion. That's not on the table for me. And I was like, respect, because number one, like, I don't agree with it. I know you don't agree with it. I know that's a life, but at the same time, I just can't help but think, if I was in that situation, it would still cross my mind of like, this is early enough. Like, hey,
it was the first thing I thought of.
Yeah, you're like, all right, well, I can't be a dad.
Yeah,
but instead of you taking the easy way out, or you doing whatever it is, you're like, I'm gonna take extreme ownership for this. And when you told me that was your plan, I was like, God is about to turn this guy into somebody else.
It is actually one of the most blatant interjections I've ever experienced with God. Yeah. In terms of him being so present. And there's other examples too, but that is like the most blatant example of that happening. Because, I won't lie, abortion was the first thing I thought of. Yeah. And we did research it because, like, I grew up in a Christian, really conservative family, just like yours. And, really strong Christian conservative grandparents, just like a family of King James Bible.
Yeah, that old Southern Baptist style. Yeah.
But I wasn't super informed on abortion. I was like, is there a certain time before, like, it's like not acceptable? It was more of just like because I was freaking out. I was 19 when I found out. Yeah, I was 20 when he was born. Dude. So we actually went to a clinic and happened to be one of those Christian clinics. I didn't even know. Yeah. And we were like, we're kind of like just seeing what our options are. And they showed us a video of the baby on the screen. And I was like, oh, this is like it has a heartbeat and stuff. Like,
a life.
And we both immediately knew. Bella wasn't a Christian at the time, but luckily I was so lucky that she got pregnant and not another woman did. Yeah. And that's messed up to say. I hope Bella doesn't listen.
Dude, but like, that's first of all, time out before you go any further. It is so evident how in love you and Bella are, and the beautiful family y'all are bringing up. Like,
God literally did that.
Yeah. And he did that through you, and he did that through her. Like, I want you to know how much I respect you, and I want you to know how much I freaking love Bella and respect her as well. Yeah. Because y'all are doing something that is a rarity in life. Like right now, the divorce rate's 50%, right? Y'all didn't start it in the way that the typical, like you did the steps out of order, and that's all right. Like, look at how God's blessed you and made this work, right? And the only reason I share that is, don't be ashamed of, like, because both of you had past that, that maybe, I don't know that checkered's the right word. We all have a checkered past, right? We all have stuff we're not proud of. Don't be ashamed of that. Look where it brought you. Look where you are now and the man you are that you've become. I'm extremely proud of you, if that's worth anything.
No, I appreciate it.
Yeah, but go ahead.
Yeah, I don't exactly remember where I was going, but...
thank God it was Bella and not somebody else.
Yes, because at that time in my life, like I said, I had 1.9 GPA. It was I really only cared about baseball and girls. It was literally the only two things I focused on.
Yeah.
And in a way, it's like what all my other buddies were doing too. But I remember when I found out that she was pregnant, I literally heard God, not physically, but I could feel him saying, like, the other kids, they did not know better. You did. And
time for some ownership.
It's like, you're my son, and you cannot continue to be living like that without consequences. And that's why I kind of took that whole approach of, all right, well, that's the only lesson I need, God. I'm sorry. I'll live. I thought I was going to live a life of misery for that. Yeah. I thought, my consequences to shut myself down for the sake of others. Yeah. But what I didn't realize was that there's immense joy in doing that.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So yeah, it was cool. But yeah, I mean, Bella and I weren't on good terms really, because I was really, really trying to sell an adoption because I'm like, Bella, you're 19, I'm 20. Yeah. I had like maybe $500 to my name, and she had nothing. I'm like, what are we doing? Like, why don't we?
What are we gonna do?
Why don't we go interview some good Christian parents? And she wasn't a Christian at the time. But anyway, but yeah, we were not living together doing anything. So I met her at the hospital at the time of labor. Yeah. She had the baby, and then I don't remember it exactly. It's a stressful time, but we ended up going home. I remember putting Jason in the car seat for the first time, and they literally just let us walk out with him. Yeah. Which I thought was so weird.
Dude, my brother-in-law, they just had their first kid. He said the exact same thing. He's like, there's no instruction manual.
You just take him home? Like, what?
Just take this guy home?
Yeah. And you don't expect that to be weird. Yeah. But it's like, because the whole birthing event and the post-birth, it's very intense. There's nurses coming in every couple hours. They're doing all these tests on Bella. There's a whole process that they take the baby through. So then when they're like, all right, go, good, see ya.
Have fun. Well, you went to the hospital with 2, come back with 3.
Yeah. So anyway, me and Bella weren't living together, but of course, I packed the car up in her car and we drive to her apartment, and I never left the apartment. So that's how we started. Yeah. And I remember at the beginning, we were just kind of like teammates. Yeah. But it was looking back, I really, really loved that time in our relationship, because we weren't really in a relationship. We were both trying to make it work with each other, but we weren't going to force it, because the last thing we wanted to do was
put 2 people who weren't really compatible in the house with the kid.
Yeah. But we also wanted to not have a broken family, and she came from a broken family. Yeah. So it was just really fun how we were walking on eggshells around each other. I would come home from work, and she would have the apartment just spotless, and she would make dinner for me. She would do my laundry without asking. Like, she was really trying to make it work. And it was just like a really fun time of us trying to be sweet around each other and make it work. And I remember I was still kind of stuck in my ways a little bit. It wasn't a perfect 180, but
sure. Never is, buddy.
I was not necessarily wanting a relationship with her, but I was praying that God would at least open my heart to the idea of it. And I remember I had this big prayer about that, and I still remember, like, when I hung up the phone per se to the prayer, I just knew he was gonna do it. Yeah. Like it was so, in the beginning stages, it would be impossible to know, but I just knew that because I had turned it over to God.
It was going to work.
And that is a wise ask.
Yes, absolutely it is.
Those verses about God saying, like, ask and you shall receive. Like, I think that's what he's talking about. It's not about, let me make 500 grand this year.
Yeah.
It's more about, like God, this is a situation. And I know it's a wise want to be able to make the situation work. And for us to, like, I know you could show yourself by creating this to be, you know, you can redeem the whole situation. And I just knew it was such a pure ask that he was going to do it, and he did. So
absolutely,
so now we're 4 years in marriage,
and then and Will came, and now you got one. Have y'all settled on a name yet? I hear Brooks is a really good name.
Yeah, honestly, I really like Brooks, and
dude, if you name your kid Brooks, they have first right access, besides my own like family, to any of my organs, like anything at any time they need anything, I got them.
Yeah, I like Brooks a lot. Bella's still in the process. We probably have like 5 or so names on the short list, but both of our kids' names, we kind of decided at the buzzer. Yeah. I know with Will, the nurse was like, okay, like, you guys need to tell us what the name is, or else I'm going to put baby boy on their birth certificate, because they'll do that.
Yeah.
She's like, you need to say. So, but yeah, Brooks, I know, like Charles or Charlie.
Yeah.
She likes Crew a lot. I don't really like Crew.
I can't say I'm a huge fan of Crew either.
She keeps trying to sell it to me, but I'm like,
yeah. It's like, you're carrying it, but listen, man, I don't want this kid getting bullied.
Yeah,
because it doesn't. Like, the thing is, it doesn't go with the other two.
That's what I'm saying.
Jace, Will, and Crew. It just doesn't feel right.
She really likes it. She also likes Andy. I think it's too weak.
I hear Andy and I think Toy Story, man. I gotta be real with you. Like,
but I like Brooks. I like Charlie a lot. Problem with Charlie is I don't like the name Charles.
Yeah.
That would be his birth certificate name. We'd call him Charlie or Chuck, or he'd have a lot of cool nicknames. But the actual name Charles, seems kind of weird.
Why not Blake?
Yeah, Blake's on the list too.
Name. Yeah. I like the name Blake. I need you to know that. I think that's a great name.
I like my name too. We were actually thinking if it was a girl to name her Blake.
That'd be cool.
I thought that would have been really cool. Yeah. It's not typical for a father to name their daughter after their dad's name.
That'd be so cool, though.
Yeah, that would have been fun.
So and again, this is something that's pretty personal, and if you want to take it out, we can. But is this the last one, or are we probably looking at? I know y'all wanted a girl, so is that still on the table, or?
Bella really wants a girl. She was disappointed that it was another boy. I mean, obviously, we're both excited, but there was a little bit of that disappointment at the beginning when we found out. But me, honestly, I don't care.
Yeah.
And in terms of having a fourth, we both don't use contraception.
Yeah.
So if it happens...
There we are. I got you. Fair
I don't want to snip my nuts because I'm 26 and I've heard stuff that it messes with.
I've heard bad stuff. Yeah,
it messes with men's hormones, and I feel like I'm too young.
I agree.
Then I don't want to tie her tubes because, again, it messes with women's hormones.
Yeah.
Condoms are horrible.
Figure it out.
You'll find that out.
Thanks, man. I'm so pumped to, We'll talk. Some of this might get cut out because my parents will be listening to this stuff, so just a heads up. Like, I don't want, and it's not even that I care, but I'm just letting you know, like, but no, I get you. Like, that's a conversation Hope and I have had, and I'm going to keep that 100% private between us. But I love you. I'm so glad you're on this thing. No, but all right. So, kind of shifting gears, similar talk track though, because I've seen a lot of growth in you too. Like from the get go, from that time we were at my house and we were grilling, and you let me know that news, to like the next time I was over, which was like the next break, in school, and you were like, I'm going to ask Bella to marry me. And I was like, well, that's awesome. Like that's huge. And then all the way up to now. But in this most recent season, your wife's pregnant, looking at boy number 3, again, awesome. And you're, working hard. You got all this stuff going on. What has been the lesson that you think God's really trying to teach you in this moment, or what's been the theme of what you've been going through?
Yeah, that's good. That's a deep question. I think the past 12 months I've actually been dealing with like fear.
Okay.
More so, and I've always had I would say in a negative perspective, I've had if you were to spin it negatively, although I think there's also positives to this idea, but I've always had an apathetic approach to life where it's really hard for things to get to me emotionally, and I'm very stoic and
you're very neutral when it comes. I don't see you I've never really seen you like super pissed off, but I've seen you like jittery, but never like, this is awesome or this sucks, you know?
Yeah, I don't know why I was born like that, but I tend not to feel a lot of things positively, and I really don't feel a lot of things negatively. Like, I'm just very even, and there's positives to that too. In business, it was really helpful in sports because it was, again, that kind of like psychotic mindset.
Ride the wave, man. Yep.
I was kind of just like psychotic. If something was good, I was the same exact mood as if something was bad.
Yeah.
But in relationships, I found out quickly, because I never really had a serious relationship until Bella. And with my kids, those are two very serious relationships, that being apathetic or stoic, it's actually not a very positive thing.
Yeah.
It's helpful in terms of like arguments because you're able to step back emotionally and just be objective and attack the issue and not get personal. It's helpful then, but when it comes to like really trying to connect, have emotional intimacy with your kids and your wife, which is basically what a relationship is.
Yes.
Is emotional intimacy.
Yes. Yeah.
Everything stems from that. So I realized like I had trouble doing that.
Yeah.
And I was self-aware enough to realize early on that was an issue, but I was living like that for so long. I didn't know necessarily how to develop
Turn it off. Yeah.
how to develop, because there would even be things like my grandma died, who I was very close with. She was a wonderful grandma. I was at the funeral and I was trying to cry as hard as I could. Like, I wanted to cry. I couldn't feel anything.
Yeah.
And
that's the worst. I've been there.
That's
the worst.
That's how I was going about life. And again, there's positives to that. It's very hard to hurt me because of that. But also, it's like, man, I want to be able to feel, things,
emotions, and these deep,
care.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I would care for things objectively because I knew it was something you needed to care about. But in terms of like, it was not based off of like an emotional care. It wasn't like wow, I feel so strongly about this, I need to do it. It was like, no, this is something that I know needs to be done, and I'm going to do it. I don't care how I feel.
Yeah.
But recently, let's say last year, around August, really, I had like multiple traumatic, like emotional events that really kind of shook me. Yeah. And
you don't have to share them specifically if you don't want to, by the way. If you want to, feel free to. But
I could. I mean, I don't think they're super relevant. Like one was a big blowout with Bella.
Okay.
And we had just got in a big fight, and it was both of our faults. And it's something that all couples deal with.
Yeah.
But we let it get a little too far, and we were just at the point where we were just throwing darts at each other.
Yeah.
Which is, I would say,
never good.
Yeah, it's easy to do that also.
Yeah. I'm hoping I do it too. And we're getting that, like, because we've been doing distance for a year now. It is horrible. But go ahead. I'm sorry. I want you to keep going. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries. But yeah, it was like 3 things last August, 2023, that really shook me to the point where I felt super exposed. Like, I felt like life was dangerous for the first time.
Yeah.
And I started getting anxiety really bad, and I didn't know what panics were, but I was getting those. And I found out what it was by searching online.
What a panic attack
what it was. Yeah, because I always heard anxiety as like kind of a myth.
Yeah, well, I mean, I hated the people that are like,
right.
I'm medicated for anxiety, and it's like, because I'm the same way. I'm like, no, you just don't handle life right. Like, you just don't have the right mindset in handling life. Like, bad stuff's gonna happen.
Right.
Take it in stride. Right. I've since kind of changed my approach to it, because I still think we're over medicated as a society. If you want to like fix anxiety, go do something about it. Don't just be like, oh, I'm gonna take a pill or something like that. Right. Like, but I think it's a combination of we're a pretty weak-minded society where we're at right now, like our generation, but also it's a very real thing. And,
for sure.
And I dismissed that a lot for a while.
So did I. In fact, I thought I couldn't identify with it.
Yeah.
It wasn't that I was being
I have such a hard time being empathetic to people because I don't experience anxiety and depression the same way. I go through anxious moments,
right,
sad moments in life, but it's not like I look at life like, oh man, I can't go outside or anything like that. And that's in my head what being anxious is, or like I'm not prepared to respond to events as they happen. You know what I mean?
The best way I can describe it for myself is that I felt like life was really dangerous.
Yeah.
And that something was going to happen. And
okay.
that I was exposed. But it was like a terrible time, honestly. I would say from August to December last year, I was pretty much in a constant state of fear.
Yeah.
And it was like pretty debilitating. I would wake up pretty much every night at 3 o'clock with nightmares, like severe, vivid nightmares. Like I'm talking like really vivid, disturbing,
felt real, and
like gory.
Yeah.
Like, and I would wake up just my heart pounding every night at 3 o'clock. But
I wish you had told me that, by the way.
Yeah,
I know it's hard as men to like reach out to people, but like I wish you'd come and talk to me, or had somebody to go to.
Yeah, it was crazy. And I even had a weekend where, so it was the week after I had that huge fight with Bella, and there were some other things in my life that were not going well.
Sure.
That were pretty traumatic. The week after, the same Friday after I had that fight with her, we're getting ready to go out with her mom to dinner. It was like a Friday or Saturday. I think it was Friday night. And I just got like huge anxiety attack for no reason. I was literally just standing I was standing in the kitchen, just like snacking or drinking something.
Yeah.
I was ready. I was kind of just waiting on her to get ready.
Yeah.
And I just get a huge wave of despair.
Yep.
Like, and it was physical. A really physical thing. Felt like I couldn't breathe. Like, it was like crazy. And I'd never experienced anything like that before. And again, I had to Google it to figure out, like, it was like anxiety attack. I'm like, what?
Yep.
So that weekend, Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, I didn't put a drop of food in my mouth. I could not eat.
Yeah.
I was so like full. It was a weekend long anxiety attack. I could not get myself to eat. Yeah. I remember on that Monday, I forced myself to cut up some apple slices, try to eat one. Yeah. I couldn't. I like took like a bite. Yeah. And I was like, forced myself to swallow this little bite of an apple. And I hadn't eaten like 3 days.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was like 6 months straight of trying to survive. And I got fired twice in those 6 months.
Wow.
Yeah. I couldn't focus on work.
Yeah. I mean, I don't blame you. That's a really tough spot to be in. I can't even imagine.
It took 100% of my mental to figure out, like, is this like, am I, is this okay?
Messed up? Yeah.
Yeah.
Am I okay? Yeah.
I started getting anxiety about if my life is like this for the rest of my life. Like, I don't know if I can even go on.
Yeah.
It started getting deep.
Yeah.
And I remember we have this great family therapist, and I rarely talked to her.
I was wondering, did you, like, how did you address it? What outlet did you take?
Luckily, I did it perfectly.
Okay.
Because I had the foundation of God. I had my faith. I had my parents who were very strong emotionally. We have this really strong Christian counselor. I had good people in my life. I never was alone. But I was talking to her. I was like, this is super deep and pretty scary. But I said, I always thought anxiety was fake. And I could never understand why someone would take their own life. I was like, until I went through this, I can understand why somebody would do that. Yeah. Because it was such misery. And I'm honestly super grateful to go through that because going back to what I was saying about being apathetic about life. Yeah. I went from not caring about anything to caring about everything way too much. Yep. So I was caring about the little details. I remember during that weekend of having that anxiety, that super severe anxiety, little things like Jace would walk into the living room and I was probably just sitting in the living room like staring. It was that bad. Yeah. I just looked at him. He's like asking me something. I couldn't even really hear what he was saying because I was so in my head. And I just started crying looking at him because I just loved him so much. Yeah. And those were some of the sweetest moments I had with those kids. And yeah. Absolutely. I just wanted to be around them. I remember I would just lay in bed with them. We would watch a movie in bed, and I was just laying with them. Yeah. And I since realized through all those tools like the Bible, there's a lot of characters in the Bible that went through the same thing. You think about David specifically was someone I really leaned on because, I mean, he actually had a reason. He was
going through a lot. Dude.
I mean, he was surrounded by nations trying to take his head off his whole life. Yeah. His entire life.
There was a point where like he was playing harp for the guy who was throwing spears at him. Like Saul was I think he was demon possessed at one point, right? Like Saul was, and he would like he had David come and play the harp for him, and then he tried to kill him
with a spear.
Yeah,
right?
with a spear. And then he was out hunting David, and David was head on a swivel at all times throughout his entire life.
Yeah, I can't find the psalm, but I leaned on him a whole lot on David because, there's one where he's like saying how he wakes up every night in a puddle of tears. Mm-hmm. He goes and he said he like swims on his couch because he's just in fear and crying. And, the Lord says outright that I did not give you the spirit of fear. Like it's not a spirit of that I give you. I give you the opposite. I give you a spirit of strength and love. And I forget the exact quote from Philippians.
Yeah.
And but anyway, I memorized some of the. I've never had a period of memorizing scripture like I did during that time, and now I'm really much more healthy emotionally. I like last night I woke up at 3 a.m. from a nightmare, but that rarely happens. Mm-hmm. And I learned so much more about God now. Yeah. To where when it does start creeping up on me, it goes away very quick. Yeah. So it's not something that's debilitating anymore.
Absolutely.
But I think it was something that God kind of, I don't want to say allowed. I don't know if he necessarily allowed it.
I think he used it to get you to a point where you were where you wanted to be. Remember you had said at the beginning of that you wanted to be more emotional and care, and so to do that, my mom taught me this recently actually. I don't know if God was speaking through her. He tends to do that a lot because my mother is an extremely strong Christian, but one of the things I was saying, like, Hope and I talked about this, like she's like, hey, I don't like how angry you get when we fight or like when something goes wrong and all that. Like, your first emotion is anger, right? And it's not like I'm violent, but I get angry, right? I'm like, yeah. And I was talking to my mom about it because my mom is very, you want to go for it?
No, go for it.
Okay. But my mom is very, like she knows me very, very well. And she said, yeah, you convinced yourself somewhere along the line that crying is unacceptable. And we didn't teach you that. But you convince yourself that crying is unacceptable, and to feel sad and to have this like deep remorse or whatever it is, right? This deep feeling of intimate sadness is unacceptable. And so you divert everything to anger, and because you feel stronger, it's almost like you're controlling the situation. She said, here's something you got to know though. Those tears don't go away. They're just on the backlog. And so if and when you decide to address this, just be prepared. It is going to be an emotional ride for you for a while. That was a couple months ago. Boy, howdy. Probably between June and July, I couldn't count on both hands how many times I was just weeping. The other day, and it's a really good thing. And it's something, the thing is, it's not a one-time fix. As you're experiencing now, it's not something that you're going to just wake up and be like, okay, I feel everything now. Like, you're going to constantly fight the rest of your life of having to emotionally regulate, of, there are going to be periods where you go back to that stoic, which is good. Stoicism is great in its own way. Right. In the right setting. But it's not meant for family, and it's not meant for, it's meant for conflict, but it's not meant as a tool to live by, though people would say it is. Because if you never are swayed by joy or sadness, you're not living. Right. You're never living.
And I wasn't.
Yeah, you're flatline, dude. Whenever you're on the heart monitor where it's like life had it's ups and downs. If it doesn't, you're dead. Right. You're not living. So anyway, all that to say, like the other day I was looking at my nephew, right? So my nephew just turned 3 months old. He's tiny thing. I was looking at him, and he had a little balloon tied to his wrist, and like we were watching him, and he's just pulling it down. And he's just so mesmerized by this balloon, and I'm just looking at this kid. I'm like, this is the most innocent creature I've ever seen in my entire life. And I started crying. Yeah. I was like, this isn't even my kid. This is just my nephew. But I'm like, this is the purest hearted child that is, nothing is wrong. He is so infatuated and mesmerized by a balloon. There's no thoughts. This is like, I look at this creation, I'm like, this is a child and creation of God in the purest form it will ever be in, I started crying.
Yeah.
You know? I'll just cry at random stuff now, dude. And I'm still working on it. It's weird, dude, because used to I was like crying is for the weak. And I still don't like crying in front of people. But right. The other day I was listening to a book called Wild at Heart. You need to read it. I have it for you. You can take it home and read it. It's, dude, I'm telling you.
No.
I
will not read it.
Why not?
I'm just being honest with you.
You're not going to read it? That's tough, man.
I haven't read a book in like years.
You need to listen to it then. Go put it on audiobook or listen to it on the way home. It's fantastic. It's addressing what it should look like to be a man in the biblical aspect, and also really good for somebody who's raising boys, and that's what you're doing. But I was listening to part of it, and it was talking about a father, you know, and how it was talking about just the relationship and how so many people are damaged by their father. And I was just looking at it like, man, I've got a great dad.
Yeah.
And I just thought about all the stuff we've been through, and I started like tearing up at that at work. I'm listening to it in my ear, and I'm like, you know, making my cold calls, doing my documentation. I was like, I started tearing up at work. Like it's a weird, those tears get backlogged, man. They don't go anywhere. Like all those times that you were supposed to cry, but you didn't cry, they're still there.
Your body keeps count.
Exactly.
Yeah, Jordan Peterson actually taught me something. So apart from like all the biblical tools that I was using to kind of grow from that, I also had some like secular tools as well, like that I learned, just like general physiological things about anxiety, and that taught me a lot too. But Jordan Peterson said that dealing with traumatic events and the anxiety associated with it, you know, your brain tries to run away from it by not thinking about it or ignoring it. And what he said was, it's like your brain will always involuntarily bring it up, and it'll always be there. He's like, the only way that you're going to get through it is to turn around, look at it in the face. What is scaring me? Like, what is scaring me? Go address it. And it's very painful to do that. And it was for me too.
It's scary. Yeah.
It was very scary. And it caused me the fear literally just to go away immediately.
Yeah.
So that was a big tool. But I found that Psalm from
go for it.
Read from David.
Read it.
So it's Psalm 6, and I leaned on this a lot. You know, it's a psalm of, he's like, you can just hear his despair in it.
Yeah.
It's like, "Oh Lord, do not rebuke me in your anger, nor chasten me with your wrath. Be gracious to me, O Lord, for I am pining away. Heal me, Lord, for my bones are dismayed, and my soul is greatly dismayed. But you, O Lord, how long? Return, O Lord, rescue my soul. Save me because of your loving kindness, for there's no mention of you in death. In Sheol, who will give you thanks? Or in hell, who will give you thanks? I am weary with my sighing. Every night I make my bed swim. I dissolve my couch with my tears. My eye has wasted away with grief. It has become old because of all my adversaries. Depart from me, all you who do iniquity, for the Lord has heard the voice of my weeping. The Lord has heard my supplication. The Lord receives my prayer. All my enemies will be ashamed and greatly dismayed. They shall turn back. They shall suddenly be ashamed."
Yeah.
So
that's powerful, dude. Like this is something, again, I spoke with my mom about. She's very, I want to have her on one of these, which is weird, but I want to have my mom on one of these. I want to have my dad on one of these.
You should do a group one.
I want to. I need to get more microphones, and I have to convince my dad to do it. He's like, I don't know if I want to do it. I was like, dude, you have no idea how much you've poured into me and how much through that I've been able to pour into other people. You have to do it, you know? But anyway, so she shared something with me that was funny. She's like, if you read the Psalms, even if you just read the titles, right, of each one, you would think David is bipolar in today's day and age, because he goes from, who is greater than the Lord? Nobody. Who does he favor more than me? Surely nobody. I am, you know, whatever. And then it goes to, why are you not here? Why can't I see you? Why have you forsaken me? All of these things. And it's fun. It's so real, because it's like the perfect picture of what being a human is. And it's the lack of consistency of this idea, like, okay, like when things are good, they're great. And when things are bad, they're horrible. And there's no between. It's not like, you know, at any moment in time, you look at like David's life and he's going through so much, and you're like, wow, he's got so much joy. And then all of a sudden it hits him and he's just like God, life is terrible. Like, it would be better for me to die right now, you know? It's just funny to see, like, David was just like us, you know, in every aspect of it. He was obviously cut above, you know, because God was using him. But, like, he was exactly like we were.
Right.
You know, like this idea of, like, when work's going great and life's going great and all of these things are going great, man, it's easy to be, you know, close to God, you know, and a lot of times we still aren't, but it's easy to just be like, man, God's good. And then when stuff's going awry, you're like, where the hell are you? What are you doing? Why'd you turn your face from me? You know? That's really cool. And it's cool to see how he took you through that time. 'Cause I mean, I think ultimately you're a lot better for it. The whole what doesn't kill you makes you stronger thing is, you know, super cliche, but the reality of it is, everything you go through that is difficult, just like it says in James, like I talked about earlier, it builds steadfastness, and you're able to look back on all the scars you got on the way there and be like, I remember that time. I remember when God got me through that time, you know, and it just builds up, and not only your ability to deal with things in the future in your own life, but minister to people who are going through a similar thing. Like, now you've gotten to the point where you can talk to somebody who has anxiety because you've been there.
For sure.
Which is cool.
Yeah, I remember sometime before that, my pastor at my church, he always gets emotional during the sermon. Like, he'll just randomly just be talking and then just get choked up.
Yeah, it'll hit him.
I always kind of respected that. I kind of want that because he feels what he's saying so much that it brings him to tears, like, instantly. A lot of times I think you see, like, a lot of old men, they kind of grow into their emotions a little bit more.
It takes a lot. Because they're a product of a different time, man. Back then there were wars and there were all these things, and you just kind of deal with it. And, like, my grandfather is very stoic. You don't see him super happy, but you don't see him super sad.
Yeah, but have you not seen him grow into being a little bit more emotional in his older age? I feel like that's a big step in a man's emotional health, is being mature enough to realize that's something that's necessary.
Absolutely.
And you feel it a little more. But I prayed to God during that because I really respected that he did that. And I was like, man, God, I want to be able to feel things like that. And I remember after I prayed that, I was like, I don't know if I should have prayed that because I might start getting some things. Sure enough, I went through hell, dude. Yeah. But I wouldn't change it, seriously. No. Even though it was a solid 6 months. And I started wondering, is this how my life is now? And I started worrying about the worry. I was like worrying heavily about, why am I worrying?
Yep.
Am I ruined?
Yeah.
Will I ever be the same?
Yeah. And the answer was no.
Oh yeah.
You won't ever be the same.
Right.
But you're not going to always worry. You're not always going to struggle with this exact struggle.
Right. And it's dealing with anxiety too quickly. It's not about diminishing the anxiety or getting rid of the thing that's causing anxiety. It's about strengthening yourself to deal with it. That's where you might think that you can't do that, but you can really find strength to look at the danger in the face and be able to feel stoic about it.
Yeah.
While still feeling, allowing the emotions when it's appropriate. Agreed. And that's a big part of being mature emotionally.
Yeah. I think the general idea behind the philosophy of Stoicism isn't so, and this is just my opinion, it isn't so much not feeling it, it's looking at it for what it is, right? And in some cases, like, you should feel however you're meant to feel, right? And you should address it. But I think in some cases it's trying to take the power away from certain outside objects that are out of your control, from bringing you to where you're at, this state of weakness, right? So if something happens at my company at work that they deem it's time to make cuts, and I'm just one of the people that are let go, you look at it as, or let's say just my whole branch is cut, right? Because, if you're let go, usually that's an indicator of performance and all that, and that's something you can't control. But, like, let's say your branch is just like, hey, we're having to cut this whole branch, I think the idea behind Stoicism there is like, cool, what can I do now that's in my control to amend my current situation, rather than sulk in what was, and is no longer. But taking it to the extreme where you're feeling this, now I can't feel anything at all, that's not good. and that's where you were at. And I'm very grateful that, you went through some tough stuff to get there, but God took you through it and got you on the other side. And now it seems like you're in a spot now that is a lot healthier than where you were. And you're not done, by the way. You're not out of it. Even if you think you're out of it, you're not out of it. It's just going to be a continuous thing that God works you through. You're going to look back probably 3 years from now to this moment and be like, I didn't even realize like where I was at versus where I am now,
Yep. 100%.
But wanted to pivot back a little bit. We talked about identity in sports, or we've talked about sports and how we felt about them. And I'd like to talk a little bit briefly, because whenever I do have athletes on here, being that I've gotten out of athletics within the last 2 years, it's really tough to switch your identity. Now, you had a significant reason to switch identities almost immediately. It's like, hey, I have to become a father and take care of this woman that's in my life that is, that is the mother of my child, and eventually became the love of your life and your wife and mother of your children, right? You had a factor, but like there's always a feeling, like we were talking about an unclosed door, right? Or something that we regret, or whatever it may be, because we put so much of our identity into athletics. So what I would like to ask is, what advice would you give to somebody whose time it is to shut that door? And how would you, because looking back on how you went about it, and versus now that you're on the other side of it, is there any kind of solace or advice you can give to somebody who's in a chapter where it's like, hey, I'm about to have to let this go and move to a new chapter of my life? It's a loaded question.
Yeah, it's a loaded question, and it was easy for me because my purpose was so obvious.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, I think, wait to feel something to do it.
Yeah.
And that wasn't the case with that.
Right.
It was like I felt it after the fact. I felt like the joy of it after. So I don't really know. I think that for me, at least, I look at like what is my overall purpose in life, no matter what I'm specifically doing, which is the first one is to pursue God. It's easy to do, just do it in the beginning of your day. Even if you can't pray a whole lot, pray a little bit, read something small, just have that baseline. And then my second pursuit or purpose is to serve my family. And then my third pursuit is just to work hard.
Yeah.
So really, that's pretty general in terms of working hard. I mean, it doesn't really matter what I'm doing. I feel like what I'm selling and what I'm doing for work doesn't really give me any purpose per se, but working hard does.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So,
I mean, Jesus was a carpenter. I can't say that his passion was carpentry. His passion was ministry.
Right.
But he had to still work hard and put food on the table because we were meant to work. Still, we weren't meant to live these lavish lives of, free of any kind of toil or labor, or
at least not yet. But another small thing I did was that even though baseball got ripped from me like pretty instantaneously, because I dropped out like as soon as we found out.
Yeah.
Again, the
It
great
wasn't really a big transitional period. It was just kind of like boom, there it went. Yeah,
what I did though is I tried to at least stay in it. I played men's league for a little bit, which was like a Sunday afternoon league, and I still play slow pitch softball with my church.
Yeah.
I tried coaching for a little bit. I was still involved in it somewhat. So it wasn't like, if you're transitioning, doesn't mean you have to completely get away from it. You can get involved in it some other way.
Yeah.
I started working with leather and stuff, which was kind of a tie into baseball because I really had a passion for baseball gloves.
Yeah.
I started a baseball glove business.
Cool. I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
Still going?
Not really. I mean,
on the side.
I didn't really like the product very much. I was more so just a marketing company.
Sure.
I found a manufacturer and had someone that I knew make me some artistic logos, which actually look really nice.
Yeah.
And I called it Hathaway Leather Company and sent all the art to the manufacturer, and then they made me a bunch of baseball gloves. They sent me them, and then I would sell them to sports stores.
Yeah.
And I made a good amount of money, like probably a couple grand
off
of one order. But again, I just didn't really like the product.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as a baseball player, I would
Sure.
like kind of like, I don't really love it.
Well, that's what takes time, man. And like, I would encourage you, if it's worth anything, like continue to pursue owning your own business and doing that. Like, I know right now you're extremely busy. You and Bella are about to play zone coverage with these with these kids, but nah, man, like pursue that. You know, whatever it looks like, just take it back to the drawing board. Work hard. Like, this isn't a business, obviously. What we're doing here, this is not a business, this podcast, but it's a project, and it's going to be altered. It's going to be adjusted, and it will probably never be a true finished product, right? But I'm not doing it because I want to make money. I'm doing it because I love it. You're not doing the leather or the baseball glove just to make money. You're doing it because you love baseball and you like leather, and you know what it's like for there to be good products out there and poor products out there. Keep workshopping it, you know?
Yeah, the problem is trying to find manufacturers.
Right.
And to get into the gritty real quick, like the Japanese make really good baseball gloves, and the people from Taiwan, what is it?
Taiwan.
Is it just called Taiwan?
It's just Taiwan, yeah.
Taiwan's known. Taiwan and Japan. I was getting mine made in China. So, think about, how would you find a manufacturer in China or Taiwan? Like, what do you do? I don't know.
I don't know. Find somebody who owns a business that has their manufacturers there, and go consult with them, I would guess. But I don't know. I've kind of slowly been searching for them. If I ever ran into one, I'd probably put an order in. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I like that though. You're basically saying commit to what you were doing, outside of sports too. Don't leave them fully behind, but whatever you go and do now, commit fully. Is kind of what I got from that.
Yeah, I still don't have all the answers, but
neither do I. None of us do. The thing is, I know it's so hard, and you may not have experienced this because your identity shifted so quickly. But like for me and for some other people, like, and it's a spectrum, right? So there are some people who gave it up super easy, and there are some people because they gave 100%, or they went as far as they could go, or for whatever reason. And then there are some people, I know a few people who are still trying to get into the league and pursuing this and feel like this is their only thing, And the word of advice I always give, and I like to give it at the end of these because I'm going to do it a segment. I don't know if I'll put you in this. I think ours falls way more into theology and just looking at how God works. But one of the things I'm going to do with these is when I do interview athletes, I call it Washed Up Wednesday, where you just kind of sit and talk about the good old days and stuff. And we'll have another one where we get to just swap stories all the time. But like one of the pieces of advice I like to give athletes who are transitioning into a new segment of their life is you are far more than the sum of any of your greatest achievements on the field or the court or whatever you did. Like, you could be All-American, take it to the top, have a professional career, 10 plus years, make, bukus of money and whatever. And that still would not be who you are. At the end of the day, you are a child of God. You are a son or daughter, a brother or sister, a husband or wife or partner, whatever it may be. You are so many things before you are an athlete. And now that this section of your life is done, it's time to focus on being those things too, and being the best you can at those things and finding new chapters. Like I said, I'm 25. And it's easy to feel like, well, my life's downhill from here because it's just work and this and that. And it's like, no, I'm about to be a husband, which is awesome. And then I have all these options and all this time to figure out what else I want to do. What's my next adventure, And that's my advice I like to give. And I don't know if that really pertains to you. Obviously, you're further ahead than I am in this whole thing. But I like to throw it out there because I think there are a lot of people who, whether it's involved directly with athletics or not, a lot of people who have identity crises, like who their whole life is work, or their whole life is this, and they don't have another place to really be, you know what I mean? But anyway, I got a couple rapid fire questions. You're a big baseball guy. What is something you'd like to see change in the game of baseball? What's something that's going on now that or in the culture or the world of baseball? What is some change you would like to see?
Major League Baseball is horrible at marketing.
Okay.
They're like, think about baseball as it was like in the 1950s.
Yeah.
It's how they are.
Okay.
They suck at presenting the sport, and that's why it's like not a lot of people our age are into Major League Baseball.
Yeah, I got to be real. I'm not a big baseball guy.
Yeah, because if you actually watch the product, they've made changes where the game's a lot quicker now. And the games aren't 4 hours long. They're about 2.5 hours, and it's a lot of action, and the innings are going by quick. And so it's not even I, as a baseball fan, I don't watch all 9 innings of every single game, every single season. But yeah, it's pretty bad. Like I think they need to have a streaming service that you can just pay monthly and watch every game you could possibly want.
That'd be cool.
They have
kind
that
of like a college football game day situation, or NFL.
Like it's called MLB.TV.
Okay.
But you know what's so stupid about the product is you put your zip code in, there's blackouts. So I can't even watch the Rangers with it. That's just weird. They do crap like that. The MLB is full of like stupid stuff like that. To where it's like, why are you making it as hard as I can to watch my team?
That's obnoxious.
Anyway.
That's weird. Okay. What's some change you'd like to see in the church? I mean, I think there's some pretty obvious answers to that, but like, what is something you would like to see as a change in like the American church?
Yeah, I think the American church is very cultural. It's cultural to go, especially where we live in Dallas.
Yep.
It's cultural to be Christian, although it's kind of starting to go against the curve a little bit.
Yes, it is.
But still, I would say
people are conforming to the curve too. Like some churches are conforming to it.
And I think a lot of these cultural Christians, as I like to say, they're going to church because it's just something you do, and they're in it for like, what can the church give me? You know, how can I be fed spiritually? How can I be served? You know, how good is the kids program? How good is the music? How good is the preaching? What am I getting out of it? I think the church would be a lot more effective if we flipped it to be more, what can I pour in to the church? How can I serve this church? How can I make it a part of me and take pride in the product to reach people? Because if you look at like churches in China where it's illegal, I keep hearing all these things about from missionaries and stuff, and how the Holy Spirit is just like going crazy and huge growth and tons of reception. And yet in countries like the U.S. and even Great Britain, Australia, where it's open, you have religious freedom, we're super apathetic.
It's extremely difficult to grow in comfort.
True.
And we are in a very comfortable society and age right now, you know, and it's going to change. It always does, you know, but yeah, I'm with you on that. I feel like the church is a place of comfort, and it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a place to comfort the brokenhearted and the weak, but when the society itself is subject to comfort, then you're going to have a hard time with a lot of growth. It's a lot like what you said is a lot like the old JFK speech. Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. Same thing for the church.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think you get more out of it too if you do that.
Absolutely. I agree. It's like Christmas, man. You get way more enjoyment from giving than getting, you know, once you get a certain age, you know, and that's maturity, right? Like once you grow up to a certain point, you're like, I personally enjoy giving gifts more than I enjoy receiving them, because it's like, I thought about you, and this is, you know, so same thing. You enjoy a lot more when you give time and you give effort to a church or to, you know, your community, rather than, you know, getting it from there. But question, me and Justin talked about your answer a little bit last week. Largest animal you think you could take with your bare hands, or fiercest animal? Just you and him in a 10 by 10 cell. And I know this is dumb. I just always like to ask this question.
No, it's
it's hilarious.
It's a very interesting topic. I'd probably say like a German Shepherd.
Okay. Fair enough.
Do you think
I mean, I think you got a shot. I think you can
like
choke
one
it
of
out.
those police dogs.
Yeah. I mean, I think
you get ripped up.
Is it a trained one or is it untrained?
I think it's trained. I think I could.
I don't know about the trained one, buddy.
Well, I think it's going to jump up and go for any appendage that I give it.
Your neck.
Well, I wouldn't let it get my neck. I'd probably give it my forearm.
Yeah.
But those things are pretty strong. But
and it's going to break your forearm.
Yeah, and it will rip my skin off. But I think to the death, though. We're talking like...
We're talking to the death. You got to go.
I think, a dog, you're still bigger than a dog. I think even me at 150 pounds, I would... If you get its neck, it's done.
Man. Yeah. You got to, like, jiu-jitsu, take its back. Yeah.
You just get its neck and you just start squeezing, the life would go out pretty quick.
100%. That's fair. That's a good answer.
Anything bigger than that? No.
It might be night, man. I don't know. And then for this next phase of your life, right? Of what's, you're about to be father of 3, all that. Are there any goals you have or anything you're working towards for your own personal growth right now? Could be anything.
Goals that I'm working on for my personal growth.
Mm-hmm. Don't say anything I have to cut out, though.
No.
I saw that look on your face. I was like, Blake, we're so close to the end of part 1. You and I are going to be on another one of these, by the way.
There's a lot of things I'm always trying to grow, but maybe like relationally with my wife, I think that I'm trying to work on being better in terms of like just emotionally connecting.
Yeah.
Not so much just like physically.
Mm-hmm. That's fair. That's a good answer. Now give me a piece of good news, whether it's in your life, in the world, or just something to end on that we can be like, that's awesome. That's good.
Yeah.
Justin Henderson could not think of something.
That is
I was
a tough
like,
question.
there's so much good in the world. Just think of something.
I would say the acceptance of trans people in America.
I hate you. Cut the whole thing. We're done.
I think trans men or women fighting against women in boxing.
Wild.
It's a cool thing. I like to see it. I think it's
You make me so mad because I know you're joking, but it's like, dang it, dude. You said it so serious.
it's equality.
Yeah. I will say, let me say this too, because you brought it up, so now I want to go on a very mini tangent for a second, all right? Because there's this idea that the church is, God hates gay people, and God hates this and that, and God hates sin, and that's a fact. I'll give you that. But it is not our place to judge what others do. It's our place, and what I mean by that is judge the action, but we do not judge the sinner, and I hate so much. I've heard so many people who are part of that community feel like they are persecuted by the church. I know I'm taking a joke and I'm turning it into something serious, but it does feel like a good opportunity to talk about this. There are people that are part of that community that directly conflict with the church, and feel like they are persecuted and not loved or wanted or anything like that. And that's a really tough place to be, because by doing that, we are saying that their struggle is worse than our struggle and the things that you and I struggle with on a daily basis, right? And people like that need love too, man. Like people in any circumstance need love and acceptance and prayer, and to understand the kindness of Jesus and know that there's nothing we can do to separate ourselves from him. There's nothing we can do that as long as we're willing to turn from it. And that's why being a Christian is so hard, because you're dying to self. You're dying to what you want to do to pursue what is best for you. And anyway, I'll go off on my tangent there, but like if we're talking about something I'd like to see a change in the church is being a lot less exclusive and a lot more, and when I say inclusive, I don't mean in a way of like, well, we're just going to tailor everything we say to a marginalized group. What I mean is just know that Jesus is for everyone, absolutely everyone. And there will be jokes, there will be divisiveness throughout all of society, but something I wish everybody could unify on is that there's not one person that is not suited for the love of Jesus. Anyway, yeah, trans boxing though, seriously, that's that is crazy, by the way.
It doesn't make sense.
Give me an actual piece of good news though, because
I would say the biggest piece of good news right now is the third child. I mean, we're getting close. Today's August 3rd. Yeah. He's due on October 11th.
Yeah. So
we're always kind of daydreaming about holding him and what he's going to look like, how he's going to be. I think he's going to be an athlete.
Dude, the third kid's always the most athletic.
The youngest one.
Yes.
And
of boys especially.
My 2 boys, although Jace is only 5, they don't strike me as like having.
Takes time.
I don't know, because when I was their age, I wasn't. You weren't?
Dude, I was the latest bloomer of all of us. Like of you, me, Peltier was a very early bloomer.
Yeah.
No disrespect, Justin, but Justin peaked early, right? Like
you had a bald spot in high school.
Oh, that's terrible. That's so messed up. I didn't even think he had that. But anyway,
he did that.
No, yeah, but no, Peltier was like 6 foot out the womb, and then I was 5'2", 100 pounds in 7th grade, and then even then once I hit my growth spurt, I still was super unathletic. I did not find like my first real stride of athleticism until I consistently started hitting the weight room, you know? So it'll take time, but like, here's why, my opinion on why the third one's always more athletic. Number one, I think there's some genetics to it, but number two, like, they get to see the blueprint of the first two. And like, you know, Jace didn't see a blueprint, so he's going to take it this far, right? And then Will saw the blueprint of Jace, so he's going to take it further than Jace. And then the third one, Brooks, will look at that and be like, oh, dude, I'm just going to shoot past the last three. You know, like that's typically how it goes.
And I have so far had very stereotypical children, where the first one is like big rule follower, very soft spoken, and he's definitely not introverted, but he's still he's very socially acceptable. Yeah, he knows how to act in outside situations. Will, my second born's flipping crazy. He draws on couches. He writes on walls. He's breaking stuff all the time. You can't take your eyes off of him. So that's pretty typical from a lot of parents to see that. And I think the third one's he's gonna be a baller, dude.
I can't wait, dude. I'm telling you, just name him after me.
I'm gonna favorite him.
I'm gonna favorite him. Whoever had the best baseball game this week can sit next to me at the table.
Your love is based off your athletic career.
Productivity is the sole driver of my affection as a father. All right, man. Well, hey, this is episode 5. I'd like to close us in prayer. This is what I like to do at the end of every one. So if you wouldn't mind me praying over us real quick. Dear Father, I just want to thank you for Blake here. I want to thank you for the time we got this morning to fellowship and just discuss about hard topics in life. I thank you for the growth that you have taken him through and are continuing to take him through. And I ask that whoever listened to this, if anybody listened to this, I would ask that they would get something from it and get something from the life he's lived and continues to live. I just pray for protection over him and his family. I pray for blessing and just deliverance when this child comes, and that they will be able to take him home with no health issues, fully healthy and good to go, and that you will just grow them as parents through all of this, and grow Will and Jace too as they become big brothers. Just ask that you will work in his life as you continue to do so, and we just thank you for the friendship we've had for these many years. We love you so much. In your name, amen. Brother, episode 5. Thank you, sir.
No problem. It was fun.